Chapter 6, Book Liberations, Psychography of Xavier, book that is a psychography of Andre Luiz. If anyone here did not start from the beginning, did not catch the previous chapter, no worries. Especially for this chapter, like most of the chapter, like most of the books of Andre Luiz, there is a chronological sequence of events, of course, but the lessons that we are to receive from each chapter, it seems to be almost independent from the other chapters. And especially in this chapter, if you have not heard or read anything, basically lost nothing in relationship to understand this chapter. So I'm really, even by the title, right? New Discoveries. There is a few things here that is completely new and kind of independent from the rest of the book. So if anyone did not catch, I'm not presenting the book except when João is not available, as it is this case today. Even if we have not understood much of it so far, we will be fine trying to understand this chapter, which is complex, it's deep. Even if you read fast and there were no questions, I'm not going to go into chapter 7, and the truth is I did not prepare for it. As just a very quick recap, this is a book that deals with Andre Luiz, with his mentor, Gubbio in this case, and other friends. There is always other friends with Andre Luiz. There is always a mentor. They are Andre Luiz in this journey of learning through his experiences in the spiritual plane, gain tremendous amount of knowledge, and have the charity to share those learnings with us. So basically, the books of Andre Luiz is Andre Luiz learning something and sharing with us what he's learning through his experience in the spiritual world. And in this particular book, the experiences, they're going to a deep area in the lower zones to try to rescue a spirit who is in a high position in the spiritual world, in position of leadership, who wasn't in a high position of leadership while incarnate in immediate past reincarnation as a pope. And find himself also in a high level of leadership, but now in the lowest of the lower zones. He happens to be loved and by a highly evolved spirit, and it's this highly evolved spirit who goes to Gubbio and ask him to go in this mission, the lowest of the lower zone, to try to rescue this spirit. And along the way, Gubbio brings Andre Luiz as a wonderful learning opportunity, and Andre Luiz bring us along for this wonderful learning opportunity as well. I'd rather not say names right now, and we'll see along the book.
Okay.
Okay. And again, there's some really deep things for us to see over here. I don't know if we'll be able to finish, but if I'm able to finish, I'm not going to chapter 7, regardless.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Begin chapter
Yes,
6.
please.
Okay. Observations.
Just one thing. If anyone has any questions, I'd rather than that to be verbal. If you need to use the The chat, it's okay, you can use the chat, but rather share everything with everyone else as if it was a classroom and everyone was together in the same classroom.
Okay.
It's just my preference. But you can use the chat as you wish.
Okay. Okay, so we'll begin chapter 6. Observations and new discoveries. Back at Gregorio's place, we were taken from our dark cell to a room with barred windows. Everything was unpleasing to the eyes. We obviously owed the change to the encouraging result of the.
I'm sorry, I keep looking at my own book.
Okay. Of the selection process. But actually, even here, we found ourselves in a veritable dump. At any rate, it was immensely comforting to be able to gaze out at a few stars through the mist that was besieging the nighttime landscape. The instructor, well experienced in such expeditions, told us not to touch the metal bars because they were electrified, adding that we were still prisoners. Nonetheless, we were able to look at the world outside and could see that the scenery was worth studying. There was a lot of movement out on the street where several groups of individuals were engaged in conversation not far from us. These conversations were surprising. Nearly all of them had to do with the corporeal realm. Minor and petty issues of private life were analyzed with obvious interest, and yet the dominant tone was sentimental imbalance, and the primary emotions were those of the physical experience. By means of the various colors, I was able to perceive different expressions in the vibrational auras that clothe the individual's personalities. I turned to Gubbio for clarification. Okay.
So we see here that Andre Luiz and the group, they went to that show off of the supposed judges in the previous chapter, in which they picked up a few cases and exploit on the guilty, exploit on the wrongdoings of the past to justify the judges, the condemnations of those souls to stay there and be in that position almost as enslaved by the leaders of that part of the lower zone. After that show off, after that spectacle of ignorance in that place that resembled, say, a castle, something like that, if you remember the last chapter, Andre Luiz and the group returned to the so-called prison. And if you remember, the first time they went to a very dark area where there is no access to anything else. And in chapter 5, when the judge gave a reading of the aura of the past spirit, they didn't find anything to condemn them or anything to put them back in that dark state, and they were kind of upgraded to a better kind of cells, right? So now they are able to have a glimpse of light. They actually could have a glimpse of seeing stars. I put myself an asterisk on a glimpse of stars in the lower zones, and it's interesting that he actually could see stars, but could not explain very well that. So if you ask me, I have the same question. Do they see stars all the way down there in the lower zones? It's interesting. Remind that my opinion, we live in the lower zones. Earth is the lower zone of incarnates. Okay, so we can see stars here, why they couldn't see over there. But in this upgraded placement that they find themselves. Now they went to very bad and now to bad. They can actually see outsides of the cells. And another thing that I put an asterisk here is in this new place, there are some bars, and the bars was electrified. And again, I put an asterisk here, try to understand, do they actually get an electrical shock if they touch that? Their perispirit, I can understand of the lower, the more materialized perispirits living in that environment would get an electrical shock. My question is, at the level of Andre Luiz and definitely the level of Kubi or more evolved spirit, would they still receive electrical shock? Okay, that's another question mark, and I don't have the answer. I am curious to hopefully research that a little further. But from there, the most important thing is that they can hear what's going on in the streets. And you see the description here, it seems pretty much like a city with people walk on the streets, with bars and stuff going on over there. So it's just like it was a city, with everything that you would expect to have here, you would expect to have there. It's not surprising. We create things in accordance to our thoughts, with our minds, right? The same way here, our cities, our neighborhoods reflects the collective thoughts, right? Our neighborhood is basically a reflection of the permanent collective thoughts of the community. Okay, the sum of it. What predominates, of course, there are exceptions, but what predominates is what our neighborhood will look like, our cities will look like, the same thing in the spiritual world. If the minds get together and mentalize bars and church, that's what we will have in the spiritual world, just like here. The minds here get together and building a church for this or for that saint, or that's what will be built. Okay, so it's no surprise in there. And because it's a lower zone, and again, keep coming back to me, Earth is just a lower zone of incarnate. It resembles pretty much a city on Earth. No surprise here at all for me. And by the means of color, Andre Luiz was able to perceive the different expressions of the vibrational auras that clothed the individual's personalities. Remember, the aura is not the perispirit, or it is the reflection of the energies that we carry within us, that kind of surrounds us. Those energies that surround us in accordance with our thoughts, with our sentiments. That's the thing that was deeply stirred by the Russians of the World War II, in which they thought they could see the spirit, they measure the spirit with them kinds of instruments, and in reality, it is hypothetically thought that actually they were able to perceive that energy that we created that among us, it's aura. There's an aura is what we are, how we are vibrating in terms of thoughts and sentiments. And Andre Luiz, of course, was able to perceive that vibrational auras as well. And those people or spirits on the street over there. Comments, questions? Okay, move on.
Okay. You still haven't grasped the extent of the exchanges between incarnates and discarnates, he answered solicitously. At certain hours of the night, 3/4 of the population of both hemispheres are brought in contact with our rim, and most of them, semi-freed from their bodies through the influence of natural sleep, are detained in low vibrational circles like this one. The painful dramas that play out in the physical rim are forged in places like this. Great crimes are conceived here, and if it were not for the active and persistent work of the protective spirits who watch over human beings.
Sorry, I keep looking at my book.
In the sacrificial labor of secret charity and persevering education under crisis supervision, even more tragic events would terrify humankind. With my soul turned to the notions of the immense light suggested by that environment, I pondered the steady course of human civilization. Lofty thoughts cleared my mind. The Lord's goodness does not force its way into the heart. The divine kingdom is born within it. And like the mustard plant, it breaks free from its seed to steadily grow and thrive under the constructive impulses of the individual. A paradise enjoyed without effort is such a presumptuous concept. Gubbio perceived my thoughts and tried to help out.
Thanks.
Yes. Okay. Mhm.
What Andre Luiz witnessed looking outside and see on the streets, he sees lots of individuals. But now, of course, they're talking about spirits, discarnate spirits, right? So continue to say individual persons, you know what I'm talking about, right?
Mhm.
And among those individuals, there were those who were definitely discarnate, but there were those that was incarnate, right? So that we created the first question: what is the incarnate? What are they doing there? And Gubbio comes to the rescue again and says about 2/3 of us in both hemispheres at one point we partially disconnect from the physical body and we go into the spiritual world. What are we doing? We're sleeping, we're dreaming, right?
Mhm.
So that's what's happening here. Once we go to bed, we sleep. Eventually, the body, through the natural process of sleeping, and Google make sure that explain that clearly here when it says semi-freed semi-freed from their bodies through the influence of natural sleep. The word natural is important here. They are not in a paranormal state. They are not in a state of trance. Sleeping is normal. Dreaming is normal. It's natural state. Okay, it's very important to understand the differentiation. So in this normal state, natural state of sleeping, we partially disconnect from the physical instrument and we go. And here's the good thing: where do we go? Right? We go where we find more comfort. We want to be in a place that we are more comfortable with, right? Um, if you go a to a party, let's say, and it's the big parties, a lot of people over there, um, and a lot of strangers, and in the corner there is one or two people that you kind of know, and on the pub there is a kind of people that you know well. Where do you go to? Who are you going to be with? With the strangers, the one that you know a little bit, or the ones that you know in greater depth, that you are more comfortable with the ones that you know better, naturally. So you would have a tendency to transit to where we find a certain degree of comfort, or the highest degree of comfort. Once you are free from the physical body and you have the options to go to places, you go where we are more comfortable with. And with a caveat that other times we may be dragged, but not by our own conscience, by the things that we need to work on, by the things that we need to do, or by those who call us and we have tremendous affinity to them, so we go to them. The same way that we go to that party and you're looking for someone they recognize and somebody calls you, it catches your attention and go over there, right? So during our sleep, same thing. Sometimes we have the option, we make choices. Sometimes we are called, and that call is kind of irresistible to us for many reasons. If it is an opportunity for us to work on relationships, this becomes irresistible to us. We go to there because we have a tendency to fix things. Okay, or you just go where we feel more comfortable. Now, if my place of comfort is a bar and I sit at the counter and I have my friends over there and I have a couple of beers, being alcoholic or not, that's a different thing. And I feel comfortable in that place. During sleep, I'll go where I feel comfortable as well, right? Well, most of us, we end up in different places, but this again, Earth is just the lower zone of for incarnate. We're more comfortable with the lower zone. So most of us will end up in parts of the lower zone. Okay, and that's where most of us will end up. And in that situation, Andre Luiz had a moment of sublimize his own thought. And he says, a lot of thoughts cleared my mind. He was so concerned with this issue that, oh my God, I mean, why can't, let's say, my guardian angel, my protecting spirit, just hold me and say, no, don't go over there. There's nothing for you over there. Go somewhere else, right? Guru's explained to Andre Luiz the great crimes are conceived there in that area of place. Why is my guardian angel allowing me to go over there? Isn't Jesus Christ the good shepherd who is shepherding us? Why would not stop me from going over there? Why let me go in the direction of the wolves? I question that. Why even when I fall asleep, my guardian angel let me go hang out with criminals, with drug dealers, with whatever? I can't stop me. If Jesus is the shepherd, and the shepherd will shepherd the sheep towards safety, not allow them to go to danger. I'll definitely question that. And then there always have that lofty thoughts that clear his mind, right? The Lord goodness does not force its ways into the heart. The divine kingdom is born within it, and like the mustard plant, it breaks free from its seeds to steadily grow and thrive under the constructive impulses of the individual. In other words, one, we have a free will, and not my guardian angel, not even Jesus, can derail it from me, can take it away from me to a certain point, okay? Two is through making those choices that I will be able to go through experiences that will lead me to rectify my choices. So the next time that the choice is given to me, I'll make better ones. Unfortunately, most of us, we only know what's bad by experiencing it. Again, we go to the Genesis mosaic. God told God and Eve, don't touch that fruit. Stay away from that. But what do we do? At the moment that he says, don't do that, my God, we need to just find out why not. Right? So most of us needs to go to the experiences to learn things. And most of us are, again, really attracted to that side that still we have within ourselves. And the one way to get rid of it is to pound ourselves into those experiences in order for us to make better choices. Okay, comments, questions? Okay, continue read.
Okay. We're on the next paragraph.
Yes, yes.
Okay. It's down at the bottom. Okay.
Yes.
Yes, Andre, the crown of wisdom and love is won through evolution, hard work, and the individual's attunement to the purposes of the Creator. The march of civilization is slow and painful. Enormous conflicts are crucial for the spirit to develop its inner light. Incarnates live on three different planes at once, like the tree that sets down roots in the soil. Incarnates have temporary roots in the physical life. They spread out branches of sentiments and desires into the circles of lighter matter, like the plant reaching for the sky, and they are nurtured by the subtle principles of the mind, just as the tree lives on its own sap. In the tree, we have the root, the foliage, and the sap. Three different processes keeping it alive. And in human beings, we have the dense body of flesh, the paraspiritual body made of a more ratified matter, and the mind, all three representing the distinct expressions of life support working toward the same end. According to what we have observed, in order to sustain themselves in the evolutionary arena, incarnates need relative security biologically, nourishment for their emotions in their individual psychic lives, and a mental basis in their inner world. Life is everyone's heritage, but directing it is each one's responsibility. The falling intelligence tumbles into the abyss, and within the lower circles in which it decides to live, it finds millions of inferior lives with whom it is used by the heavenly wisdom for the greater glorification of the divine work. In the economy of the Lord, nothing is lost and every resource is used in the chemistry of the infinite good. Right here in this city, there was at first a venerable rim of primitive lives. Little by little, it has become inhabited by huge communities of prideful and cruel souls. They have become entrenched here, holding to the insane purpose of fighting against highest goodness. Yes, yet they play a useful role with their enormous, still subhuman groups, despite their work, which we might regard as unbearable. They use large amounts of violence. Even so, over the course of the years, their intellectual influence will bring great benefits to those who are currently oppressed. And we can be certain that, despite their proud show of intelligence and power, they will remain at their posts only as long as the divine direction consents to it, founded on the principle that each group must have the government it deserves.
So Gubbio gives continuations to his explanation of the relationship between incarnate and discarnate. He brings this analogy of comparing us with a tree having roots. It represents our physical body. We have the trees and the branch representing our perispirit, and the sap represents us, the spirit. Like a tree that creates roots deep into the soil, search for nutrition. We have, as an incarnate being, need of nutrition. Of course, this need of nutrition is directly related to our more intellectual involvement. The more evolved we are, the less a need for heavier nutrients we have. That's why perhaps it is said that the leaders in Nosular and in Nosular, the big leaders over there, they don't have the need of the nutritional liquid fluids as Andre Luiz when Yodas needed himself. The more evolved ones are free of that. So even in the spiritual world, we will feel the need of some kind of energy for us to continue. The more evolved we are, the lesser is the need of a more dense kind of nutrition. And that's also in the spiritual world. It is said, I'm just quoting what we said, I don't know if that's a fact, I don't know if it's biologically possible, that Buddha was able to feed himself with 1 grain of rice daily. That was being said, and I go, do I think it's possible? Personally, yes. Do I think that Buddha did? I have no idea. I don't know. Okay. If you ask me, biologically speaking, by what you understand in nutrition, the answer would be no. Right? But do I believe that there are individuals out there that have overcome that need, that are able to get necessary nutrients outside of the digestive system? I think it's possible. Okay, there would be highly evolved spirits who come here in a highly evolved missions would be able to do such a things. Okay. It is certain you have studies that in more evolved worlds that we're not even going to have a digestive system. We'll be able to get nutrients from the air. What we need, perhaps oxygen, nitrogen, and those things are in the air. If we evolve ourselves enough, we may be able to feed ourselves through our respiratory system and no longer need a digestive system. Are we there? Of course not. Is it possible that it may be 1 or 2 highly evolved missionary coming to Earth and is able to do it? Personally, I believe it is. But again, it's just a personal belief at this point, okay? Mm. And if you ask me to quote any books, I won't be able to quote any books to you, okay? So as incarnate, we need nutrition. A tree needs nutrition, goes deep under with roots on earth seeking for nutrition. It's pretty much pertains to the physicality, so to say. But in that, going into depth, into earth, it resembles, with analogy, going greater into darkness and holding ourselves down to what's held very dense with earth. It's where we plant ourselves, right? So the more evolved we are, the less grounding to earth we need. So a less of a physical body in it. So that is a very good analogy, in my opinion, for us incarnate. And because we have this, we are so grounded to materiality, we have a tendency to go into things again where we find more comfort. When I free from the physical body, just to go to a place where I'm more dense, more earth-likely, and you end up in areas like that. Because again, that's where we have our comfort. As we evolve, as we progress, we have less need of those nutrients. We have less need of food. Okay, and we are able to stay more on the side of the light instead of developing our roots deep down into darkness. Okay, I think it's a pretty elegant analogy that Google makes over here. Let's see what else is important here. Life is everyone's heritage. By directing it is each one's responsibility. So again, like in the Mosaic Genesis, we have options. No, don't touch that fruit. Do everything you want. You live in paradise. It's so good. Just stay away from that tree over there. Choice that we make. You know, we go towards that fruit because it challenges us and because it makes us to figure out why is this thing not so good. And most of us need that. Most of us will seek for the opportunity to challenge the rules, everything, out of a need to grow. If you have that need, you'll be able to experience it because we have the free will. It's not going to be denied to us the opportunity to grow. If you choose to grow that way, in this direction. Again, we are educated by love and re-educated by pain. We are educated. Don't touch that tree. Don't touch that fruit. Didn't work. Now we're going to be re-educated. Now we shall make your life to the sweat of your brow. Comments? Questions? Okay.
Okay. The instructor paused at length while I focused my attention on two women who were talking close to the bars. One of them was already discarded and was telling her still incarnate companion, who was partially free on the wings of sleep. I've noticed that you seem weaker, more submissive lately. Are you discouraged about the commitments you made? Feeling a little confused, the other woman explained, Joel, who has joined the prayer circle, which has sort of been changing our lives. The other could not believe it, and like a surprised animal, she exclaimed, Prayer? Are you blind to the danger of what that means? Those who pray become submissive. You have to scorn, torment, and hurt him so his rebelliousness will keep him in our spheres. If he becomes compassionate, it will ruin our plan and he will no longer be useful instrument. The other, however, remarked naively, he says he feels calmer, more confident. Marina, the other interrupted angrily. You know that we can't perform miracles and that it isn't right to accept the rules and trickery from cowardly spirits who, in the pretext of religious faith, ascribe to themselves the role of dictators of salvation. We need your husband and all the others who, like him, live on our level. Our plan is enormous and of great importance to us. Have you forgotten how much we suffered? I myself had hard lessons to pay back. And patting her friend's shoulder, she added, Don't believe any spiritual spells. Reality is ours, and we have to fully seize the opportunity. Return to your body and don't give in 1 inch. Run from those self-appointed apostles. They're bad for us. Take up all of Joel's time and don't let him go. Wound him slowly. He will finally get desperate, and with his outbursts of disobedience displayed in our favor, we will achieve our purposes. No tolerance. Don't worry about promises of heaven or hell after death. Life is always what we make of it. Speak. Okay.
Okay, so after all that explanation of Goodyear, about our relationship as incarnate with the discarnate of the spiritual world. Andre Luiz has the opportunity to witness this conversation of two women conversing just outside on the street. And one of them was a discarnate spirit, and the other ones was just incarnate spirit. Her name was Marina. So just the incarnate one is Marina. She was at the state of sleep, the natural process in which the body stays at the rest, and we, the spirit, with our perispirit, we go into the spiritual world and have experience in the spiritual world. And obviously, Marina and this woman, that spirit, have established a relationship. Remember when I said that we go to places that we have relationships with, we go to places we are more comfortable with, or you go to places where we have a need to go in order to readjust our relationship. So you need to go in order to free yourselves from disruptors of our process of education. So you have to get free of this certain thing before you can move on. So we are forced to go to those places in order to do that. In this case, it seems like it's obvious that Marina had a relationship with that woman, with that spirit, not only that woman, but the group over there, because she says, keeps saying our plan. Say our plan is enormous and of great importance to us. So it's not that individual spirit, but a group of spirits. And that spirit herself says that she herself uh, have had lessons to pay back. So it's obvious that it's someone, or perhaps a group of spirit, inner work seeking to make justice to their own hands, which is very, very common what we see in our leadership meetings as well. Marina is having a little bit of a problem, and the problem is that her husband is trying to better himself, join the group prayer. Doesn't say what group prayers. It's meaningless. Prayer is a prayer, regardless of the words that we use, to whom that you direct that prayers to. It may be to Buddha, it may be to Krishna, it may be to Jesus, it may be to Allah. It doesn't matter. Prayers are prayers. All leads to one and only God. Okay. Since that happened, we assume that is in Brazil, because the names and everything there. So we would suggest to us that it's more of a Christian group of prayers. But again, it's completely meaningless, because good news is good news. Christ is the captain of the ship for all of us, and whatever the religions you choose, all gonna leads to goodness as long as a real prayer, true prayer. And that's would be a subject for another discussion. But it's a group of prayers, he believes are true prayers, and that's helped him to, according to Marina, that he feels more in peace, more focused in goodness. And of course, that's a big no for that group in the spiritual world. The last thing that they need is prayer. Okay, even coincidentally, just this Monday in our leadership meeting, the one spirit was complaining exactly that the prayer was really hurting that spirit, and it was really hurting their group. And when I questioned how could possibly a prayer be hurtful, that spirit did not have an answer for me, but just said that it was hurtful and that I should know why. Of course, you know why? Because they don't want to move. They want to stay in exactly where they are. They have the priorities, but most of the case seek revenge for whatever believe they deserve to make justice to their own hands. And that seems to be the case of this group. And we see here the power of influence, the power of suggestion, how this spirit is able to involve Marina, who perhaps was trying to, my husband kind of seems better, looking better. Maybe I should take a look at this prayer thing. Maybe it works. And naturally, as soon as she falls asleep, she's going to be called again. Some of the calls are very irresistible to us. When the spirit calls Marina, she needs to go, and there she is strongly advised to repel all this idea of prayer, all the ideas of being good, compassionate. Okay, don't let it be compassionate. It will ruin our plan, and he will no longer be a useful instrument. So the thing is so pathetic that they see themselves as instrument, and they accept the position as an instrument to go along and work for them to establish the justice that they believe in. And those is as parentheses, most of them do believe in that they are doing justice. Most of them do believe that all this story of forgiveness, all those things that there's no paradigm of Christ doesn't really work. What really, really works is an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. And it's a very strong belief in a theology those individuals have, and it's very hard to break. Once they start to even question, is there a better option than an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, then they become amenable to be helped. Once they're still stuck on that so deeply, it's very hard to help those spirits. So Marina is strongly lectured by this spirit, say, go back over there. No, make sure that your husband stop this nonsense of going to prayer group, come back to us, because we need to continue this process of establishing more just world according to them, and with basically an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. Okay, comments, questions? Okay. We continue. You were, sorry.
Okay, sorry. Okay, thank you. Speechless at what I had just heard, I noticed that the cunning and vengeful spirit was enveloping the other one in the dark fluids, as common hypnotizers do. I looked questioningly at our instructor, who, after having carefully watched the scene, informed us there are millions of cases of this level of obsession. The poor woman is wavering in her faith and is unable to appreciate the happiness the Lord has granted her in a dignified and peaceful marriage. She will wake up early in the morning with a suspicious and smitten soul, oscillating between believing and not believing. She won't be able to polarize her mind in the trust with which she must face the difficulties ahead and wait for the sanctifying manifestations from on high. Due to the inner uncertainty that characterizes her attitude, she will remain attached to this ignorant and unhappy sister who is persecuting and subjugating her in order to wreak deplorable vengeance. She will thus become an object of affliction for her husband and will endanger his incipient achievements. Thanks. Okay.
So naturally, when Andre Luiz witnessed this display of ignorance and a hardened heart that is completely dominated by the desire for revenge, of making justice to their own hands. Gubbio explains that this is it's not so uncommon. Okay, and going back over here, not only that spirit was speaking um, to Marina was also as if providing energies to that spirit, and of course, in this case, negative energy. I would say the reversal of giving passes. Okay, when you give passes, and I don't want to say that it's giving negative passes, but it's a reversal of giving passes. In a passes, we seek to remove harmful inferior energies and replace with harmonizing, purifying energies. In this case, it's be the opposite way, in the reverse of it, right? In which that she's trying, that spirit, to remove all the better energies that she has be able to get from their husband going through prayers and thing, remove all that and replenish that with negative inferior energies. And Google says that this is not uncommon. This happens quite often. He's calling this the relationship between Marina and this spirit an obsession. By definition, we know the obsession is persistent, continuous, inferior influence of one spirit upon another. It can be incarnate to discarnate, incarnate to incarnate, discarnate to discarnate, and all possibilities. As long as it's persistent, okay, and it's towards something harmful, and as long as it's an established relationship, we're gonna call it an obsession. Those other obsessions means that is distinct from previous incarnation? Not necessarily. We can start a process of obsession right now, right? What I'm saying, this relationship does not need to be from 100 years ago. It may be start a process of obsessions right now with one of us over here with incarnate or with the discarnate. But by definition, it has to be a persistent influence of a spirit upon another based upon an established relationship. Meaning, if I go to a bar and a spirit that I have never met before seeks to drink through me, it's just being an opportunistic spirit over there who can drink through me. That's it. We don't have an established relationship, therefore I cannot call it an obsession. Okay, so what the fact that group is calling this a level of obsession means there is a established relationship, and you can see for what she said there is an established relationship, and that is going on for a while. And of course, this spirit is providing her harmful, being for her harmful influence. So I would agree that is indeed an obsession by definition. And what this spirit is doing is trying to keep her on a state of questioning everything that is more elevated. When this husband seems to upgrade himself, going to prayers and everything else, he will influence the whole household. Remember from Gandhi, right? When I better myself, I better my family. When I better my family, I better my neighborhood. When I better my neighborhood, I better the whole planet, right? There is this effect, this that we have upon others. So only by him going to pray, even if she's not going, it's bring that positive energy to the home, to the marriage, to in the case to her. And that's, of course, a big no-no for these spirits because they have their plan. And once she wakes up, how's she going to be feeling? We're going to remember word by word Is she going to be able to tell everything that happened? Likely not, but she will have that feeling that something deep and strong happened while she was sleeping, that she will start to kind of questioning, why is my servant going to pray? Why is he doing that? What is he trying to do? He's trying to break us apart. Everything that will put her in a state of confusion. And again, the spirit is not making decisions for her. The decision is hers. That spirit is influencing her. The spirit is dumping as much negative energy as possible to her, but it's still the decision is hers. And she's likely going to be she's going to be a torment to the husband. We'll try to defeat the husband from goodness, because apparently her husband is also part of that plan that he definitely seems to have walked out through his own willpower, but he will be tempted to make decisions which side do you want to go now, continue the prayers or go back to the older plan. Comments, questions? Okay, continue. How can you? No, you are muted again, so right.
Again, I'm so sorry.
No
Thank
problem.
you. Thank you. How can she break free of such an enemy? Asks Elio. By maintaining a standard of superior firmness and a sufficient yearning for the good. With such noble and ongoing effort, she would enhance her mental principles and enjoy the sublime sources of life. And instead of absorbing sickly and depressive radiations, she would begin to emit transforming and constructive ones on behalf of herself and the spirits with her. In every scene of the universe, we are one another's satellites. The strongest hold the weakest in their orbit. But we must remember that the most fragile today can become truly powerful tomorrow, according to their individual efforts. We sent out and received magnetic rays at the same time. Consequently, it is important to remember that those who are under the control of blind energies and who yield to the blows and suggestions of the tyrannical forces emitted by the perverse intelligence who assail them remain as receptors of psychic disorder for a long time. It is very difficult to readjust someone who doesn't want to be readjusted. Ignorance and rebelliousness are actually the breeding ground for suffocating evils. Join us. Okay, stop here. Okay.
Yes. So how can we free of such an enemy? In the case, how can Marina suffer that obsessing spirit? And the answer is very clear: by maintaining a standard of superior firmness and sufficient earning for the good. And this is what we covered last week in the studies of the Medium's book, the same thing.
Mm.
You know, how can we keep ourselves somewhat protected from inferior influences, inferior energies? Is by thinking of good and practicing the good.
Mm.
Is by repelling all the thoughts of harm to oneself and to others. But the thing is the firmness, and that's where we have the problem, that it's so difficult for us. Maintain is to maintain the standard of superior firmness, is to keep ourselves at that level more often than not. It's impossible for us to be on the good side 100%, but let it be more towards goodness. Let's say not guessing over here 24 hours a day. We'll be able to do stay vibrate at a higher level, let's say 16 hours, right? If the best that we can do, it's not going to be 100%. And sufficient earning for the good. Trying your best to be with the good, to practice the good. Then we will vibrate at a higher level. The spirits want to be able to influence us more. Again, he says over here, we are like satellites, okay, to one another. And look, just like in our physics, the bigger body has a force of attraction of the lower body, right? The the moon is attracted to the Earth gravitational field, the same way that Earth is attracted to the sun gravitational field. Size, purely size matters in this case. The bigger attracts the smaller. In terms of energies of power, the same thing holds true. We become somewhat subject to the one who has stronger will, stronger desire. They are able to influence us, to convince us, right? We can see that very often. The ones who are able to scream loud enough to bring us the idea in such a forceful way, they gain followers because if our mind's kind of empty, it can be filled by anything. And usually is the wrongdoers who screams the loudest. Now, if I have nothing here, I have to fill it up with something. And if the ones that are screaming out loud, they are the bad ones, there's a good chance that I'm going to become followers of them because I'm attracted to their power, to their energies. That happens to all of us. How do we elevate? How do we do that? We fill up our tank with good stuff. So there is something over there that rejects, that opposes the negativity that's the bad ones are screaming out loud. They cannot permeate me because I'm already filled with something else. And what is that something else? Is exactly to maintain a standard of superior firmness and sufficient earning for the good. Once I get there on a consistent base, most of the time, I'm somewhat protected. And then what do I become? I become the strong one who is able to, with my now greater gravitational field, pull the others towards me, pull others towards goodness. So that would be the case of the husband going to prayer, elevate himself, become somewhat of a positive magnet if he's able to stay there, and then to maintain, maintain is the big thing, to maintain, he'll be able to somewhat attract the wife towards him. But at the same point, there is the other side, which is strong, the woman that spirit is strong, has a strong gravitational field as well, pulling Marine towards her side. So you have to make a decision. And here where we come, that it's me, it's not, or in this case, it's Marina. It's not the husband, and it's not the spirit in the lower zone. She will have to make a decision which side gravitational field she feels more comfortable and she will choose to go through. Naturally, she feels more comfortable that she has to have it for a longer time. And in order to get rid of that, she will have to have the firmness for goodness. Then she'll be able to gravitate towards the side that is going to prayers. And the same thing with the husband. You have to make a decision whether you stay on that prayer or become influenced by the wife who's being influenced by the obsessing spirit. You can see here how this the wind of relationship is so complex, and at the end, we are the one who makes decisions as hard as it is. Let's assume that Marina now says, I really want to stay to the side of prayer. I can follow my husband. I can go where he's going. That's how I'm going. And she didn't do it. Is she completely feel that process of obsessions? No. Is she completely free when she goes to sleep? She will no longer go to those places? No. But now when she goes, she becomes a, a bigger body with gravitational power to attract some towards the side of the prayers. Will that obsessor surrender? Of course not. That obsessor will fight as hard as she can to take that woman out of the prayer group. But with persistence, again, persistence is what good is telling here. She will become, Marina, a gravitational power that will help that obsessors. And that's why we say in spiritualism, the process of this obsession is a process of education of both the one doing the obsession and one being obsessed. Both need to learn to break that cycle. So Marina starts to learn this process. She becomes a teacher, and consciously to that experience in the spiritual world, and to others who may see any advantage of following Marina, the woman who is now following her husband. Does it make sense or make things more confusing?
Yeah, makes sense.
What I'm trying to create here is the importance of this interchange of energies that we have in with ourselves, especially with the spiritual world, especially with our invisible friends, especially with our relationships with the discarnate spirits.
Mhm.
That's not because now one is going to spiritual center that he does not have an obsess anymore. No, he's still there. He's still knocking the door and say, "Hey, what are you doing there, man? You think your spiritism it's not good for you. Come with me." I have to resist. I have to have strength of power, and hopefully in this process, this obsessive mind will see that this guy seems to be doing better than he was doing before. Let me see what he's doing. Maybe I'll follow him. And then we both can get help by this doctrine. And for one thing, I transform one obsessor into a friend, at least one out of the many that I have.
Uh-huh.
All right, continue.
Okay. During a spontaneous pause, I noticed, not far from us, a number of quivering, dark forms that seemed to be linked to the personalities we were studying. They looked like small egg-shaped spheres, each one slightly bigger than a human skull. They displayed different characteristics. A few were moving under their own power like giant amoebas, living and breathing in that spiritual atmosphere. Others, however, remained motionless, apparently inert, connected to the vital aura of individuals as they moved about.
Oh, sorry.
I stared at the scene for a long time with the inquiring attitude of a lab technician looking at unknown forms. A large number of the spirits who were parading by close to the bars were bearing such living spheres, as if the latter were attracted to the radiations of the former. I had never seen such a phenomenon before. In our colony, even when we were treating troubled and suffering individuals, the field of emanations was always normal. And when working alongside imbalanced souls on the planet's surface, I had never seen this particular irregularity, at least from what I have been allowed to observe. I was troubled and turned to our instructor for help. Andre, he answered, circumspect, showing the seriousness of the matter. I can understand your amazement. I saw you are, okay.
Wanna go back?
Yeah, one sentence there. Okay. I saw right away that I stared at the scene for a long time with the inquiring, okay, wait a minute, you went back. Okay, I stared at the scene for a long time with the inquiring attitude of a lab technician looking at unknown forms. A large number of the spirits were parading by close to the bars were bearing such living spheres, as if the latter were attracted to the radiations of the former. I have never seen such a phenomenon before. In our colony, even when we were treating troubled and suffering individuals, the field of emanations was always normal. And when working alongside imbalanced souls on the planet's surface, I had never seen this particular irregularity, at least for what I had been allowed to observe. I was troubled and turned to our instructor for help. And Andre, he answered circumspect, showing the seriousness of the matter. I could understand your amazement. I saw right away that you are new to this type of work, but surely you have heard of a second death. Yes, I have.
Thanks.
Okay.
Okay, so we're gonna get here into this. We're gonna have to define what he means by second death. But what is it that Andre Luiz witnessed on the street? So at this point, we are done with Marina. Marina go back to her body. Is gonna wake up and have all the troubles associated with that experience, all the questioning and all the doubts. And then we start to observe something now completely new to him. And with this, I would say, amorphic individuals in the spiritual world. He sees these amorphic shapes that he seems to looks like some kind of amoeba that changes its shapes as it's moving around. Some of them moving around on their own seems to be kind of self-sufficient, and some others who seems to be moving at the guidance or desire of all the spirits, as if they are somewhat dependent of someone else. There's most of them would have a egg-like appearance, having a spheroid ovoid shape, and that's where the word ovoid comes from. And Andre Luiz has never seen this before, even when he was able to assist all the spirits in serious problems of obsessions. We never witnessed spirits who have lost the human-like morphology, that they look completely different from what a perispirit should look like. A perispirit would have the morphology of the physical body. And those ones had lost the appendices, they had lost their shape and were more like an egg-like appearance. And Ruby was asking, you have heard of second death, right? So now let's see what this means by second death. A terminology that I don't really like, and I'll show you later why I don't like that. You continue.
Okay. Yes, I have. I have accompanied several friends to the endeavor of reincarnation. When attracted by the imperatives of evolution and redemption, they return to the physical body. At other times, although more rarely, I have received news from friends who had lost their paraspiritual vehicle upon entering higher realms. Those noble missionaries were distinguished by lofty titles in the higher life, and I was unable to follow them closely. Gubbio smiled and remarked, so you know that the paraspiritual vessel is also transformable and perishable, even though it is made up of more ratified matter. Yes, I answered hesitantly in my eagerness to learn. Then you have seen spirits who dissolved it as they moved on to sublime spheres, and whose greatness we are unable to fathom. For now, You have also observed brothers and sisters whose paraspirits underwent reductive and disintegrating procedures in order to be reborn in earthly flesh. The former are ennobled and glorious servants who have successfully fulfilled their duties, whereas the latter are our colleagues and who deserved reincarnation due to intercessory prayers. But just as what happens to those two types of spirits, ignorant and bad, wayward and criminal spirits also lose their paraspiritual form after a while, due to the destiny of their minds saturated with inferior impulses, they cannot grow spiritually and they gravitate around the absorbing passions that for many years they made the focus of their interests. A great many in such circumstances, especially participants in condemnable crimes, are attracted to their former accomplices. If follows, if followers of Jesus stay connected to him through imponderable threads of love, inspiration, and recognition, pupils of hatred and perversity stay united under the guidance of intelligence that weave them into a web of evil, to enrich the mind with new knowledge, to perfect its faculties of expression, to purify it in the illuminative currents of the good, and to ennoble it through the definitive incorporation of dignified principles, is to develop our glorious body, as the Apostle Paul expressed it. It is sublimated and divine matter. That matter, Andre, is the type of vehicle we aspire to when we refer to the life that is above us. We are still held to the cellular agglutinations of the physio paraspiritual elements, just as the turtle is shackled to its shell. We immerse ourselves in the fluids of the flesh and free ourselves from them in a vicious seesaw effort, effect through many lifetimes until we awaken our mental life to sanctifying expressions. We are like trees in the soil. Our emotional roots are immersed to various degrees within the spheres of primitive animality. Then the scythe of death comes and cuts off our branches of earthly desires. And yet our connections retain an extreme vitality in the lower layers, and we are reborn among those same individuals whom we have associated with for a long time through shared struggles, and to whom we are fettered by the communion of interests of our evolutionary line. Okay.
Well, there is witness sees this amorphic, morphologically unidentifiable things. And Gubio comes, of course, to explain everything to him, and he asks, "You have heard of second death, right?" And then Luis, "Yes, I have heard." So the reason I say that I do not like the term second death is because, but in reality, what is defined by secondary death, and I did a little research on that, is really spiritual transformation. Okay, spiritual upgrade or degradation, changes of the perispirit. Keep in mind that these changes of the perispirit and of the spirit cannot regress, but the perispirit leading the state of mind of a spirit, it can. Not the spirit, but the perispirit, the spiritual body, because the spiritual body is malleable to the mind. Okay. So what they call it here is second death, and again, it's despise the word death there, is indeed a transformation. There's three scenarios that we can see this transformation of the spirit. One, the commonest, the very common one, it's us. Elmo dies, goes to the spiritual world, identifies himself as Elmo, spend his time in the errant state or discarnate spirit with a self-identity of Elmo, with a shaping my perispirit through my mind to Elmo's mind, pretty much as Elmo identifies himself, you know, will keep pretty much my morphology, the shape of my body, and everything else. Now, the spirit playing the role of Elmo needs to reincarnate. And let's assume that now Elmo is going to reincarnate and will have the physical body that will be female or woman, let's say in the Scandinavian world, is going to be blonde with blue eyes and all that thing. Elmo's, or the spirit playing the role of Elmo, gonna have to make a little change in that body spirit to go from black, dark eyes, pink hair, to be with straight, blonde, blue eyes, losing my male characteristics and gain female gender and reproductive organs. There's got to be a transformation of the body spirit. I guess everybody will agree with that, right? So that the spirit playing role of Elmo, we have a reduction of that perispirit and a transformation of that perispirit to now being able to form. Remember that the perispirit is the one that forms the physical body. To form the new body that will have the female characteristics and the genetic characteristics associated with naturally with the parents that will be providing the elements that the genetic elements, the formation of that new body. So the perispirit has to transform somewhat. The spirit you want, the spirit that played the role of Elmo is the same spirit that will play the role of this female blonde girl in the Scandinavian country. Right? The spirit is the same, but the physical body will be different, and the differentiation of the physical body will be due to the differentiation that is being done in that perispirit. Any problems here? Does it make sense?
Yes. Yes.
Now, another type of differentiation or transformation of the physical body. Not Elmo, let's get someone else. Let's say Francisco Cândido Xavier, or let's say Gandhi. Discarnate. Francisco Cândido Xavier and Gandhi, they have that morphology that are associated with the human body. They identify themselves as that kind of body. That's how the perispirit is. Also, now the perispirit of Gandhi will look somewhat like Gandhi, and the perispirit of Chico Xavier will look pretty much like Chico Xavier. Naturally, not at 92, at much closer age, perhaps in his stories, whatever he feels more comfortable, whatever he wants to identify himself. But let's say that you got a letter from Jesus and say, yeah, you guys have been upgraded, you're gonna go to incarnate now at a higher world, no longer going to Earth, you're gonna go to another type of world for reincarnation, a much more elevated world for all the wonderful work that you have done on Earth. But in that place that you're going, again, there is no more digestive system. All the spirits we just talk about that or use it. All the spirits have evolved enough that now they're able to absorb all the necessary nutrients to sustain organic life through breathing, through the air, or your nitrogens, or your oxygens, or your carbon that you may need. You'll be able to get it from the air. That's a big transformation. You don't need a digestive system anymore. You don't have stomach. You don't have an excretory system anymore. So our perispirit is going to have to be transformed as well, right? because again, the perispirit is what forms the physical body. So the perispirit is going to have to undergo a transformation in order to be able to produce now a differentiated kind of physical body, a physical body that no longer needs a digestive system, because they are so elevated that they are able to absorb nutrients from the air. We'll get there one day. For now, it's still need to eat. And please, let's eat well. That is a transformation of that perispirit, right? One is a normal, we go through, it's us. The other one, as I said, is a more sublime transformation, going for a much better thing for spirits who have done the homework over here and deserves to go for the next level. But unfortunately, there is a third one, and it's the ones that minds become absolutely consumed on a mono idea. Very often this mono idea, the desire is only one and one thing only, is revenge, it's vengeance, is to make justice, and becomes so, the mind becomes so locked in that mono idea, and then with the bombardment of lower energies, in the case of Marina, being bombarded by that spirit who is leading her more and more to be fixed on that idea, they start to lose the normal shape of the physical body. They start to lose their appendages, they start to lose its normal form, and they start to have this amoeba kind of morphology, have to have this more ovoid kind of form of the perispirit. If you recall, when the book of the suicides, in which one of the spirits have committed suicide, he had a mono idea that in the spiritual world, I do not deserve to have hands. The hands was used to kill a woman, and he focused so much on that idea that he kind of lost his hand in the spiritual world. And when he incarnated, the perispirits were not able to form hands, and he incarnated without hands because he had focused so much on idea that he does not deserve to have hands, does not deserve to have hands, reincarnated without hands, because he reshaped the perispirit, and the perispirit again is what makes the physical body. That physical body was born without hands. That what happens with the so-called ovoids that we call, or spheric, or spheroid is another terminology that I have read before, but it's basically a deep process, I would say, that one self-obsession, okay, the spirits cause them to themselves, plus with the assistance, the bombardment of negative energies, they are so entrapped in this mono idea that they lose everything else. So when we receive spirits and try to talk to them about, but you have loved ones. No, there's no loved ones. But you could become to the light side of light. No, there is no light. They're completely obsessed, and self-obsession first, secondary to other obsessions as well as possible, that they lose that shape. So what it's being termed over here second death, and that's why I dislike the idea of second death, because here is there that the perispirit dies again. It's not really death, it's a transformation, is a complete differentiation of the perispirit. Again, natural processes like reincarnation, moving up in the spiritual, in our evolutionary path towards which we require completely different morphological physical instruments. And unfortunately, the negative side is one that Andre Luiz is witnessing in this process of become an ovoid. I believe our time is up. We need to stop here, but this is very important. I want to know if there's any questions, if anyone understand.
I am certainly not clear the concept of second death related to transformation.
Okay. What they call in second death is when the spirit completely reshapes its perispirit.
So it's just the reshaping of the perispirit.
Correct.
And form.
Correct. It's not a death.
Oh, okay. Okay. But
and that's why I hated this terminology.
Because Elmo, it says here, that's what's confusing. And thank you for your question, because it says here, transformable and perishable.
Yes.
So he's making the distinction between transformation, able to transform, and able to perish. That's what I don't understand. And then another thing is that I did not get the connection between the egg-shaped spheres and the second death either.
Okay, so in order for something to be perishable, what does it need to happen? Yeah, it needs to degrade, right? So in order to be transformed, that's the what is old need to be degraded for the new to flourish, to rebuild. In order for me to build another house where my house is now, I have to demolish this house in order to put another one. Right?
Yes. Okay.
Okay. So what they mean to perish here is one needs to degrade in order to regrow better or regrow worse. In this case, regrow worse. It has to transform itself. That's why I really don't like neither the words death, not perishable. Beginning with perishable means
I agree, definitely.
Something goes spoiled and is degraded by microorganisms. That's not the case. With perishable here means that it's not it's not a static constant. It may undergo transformation. In order to transform something, in order to make something new, the old one has to give away from the new one.
Exactly. Okay. Okay.
That's what the perishable means here.
Oh,
okay.
Because we had before that the perispirit. We always have the perispirit, even.
Always gonna have a perispirit.
Yeah, that's what we learned before. And then when I confronted with this, it threw me off, Elmo. That's exactly what happened. It threw me totally off.
Right, but the perispirit is never gonna be the same.
No. That just explains the perispirit is degrading and then it transfers into something else. So the other one is no longer here.
That's correct. So that's what they meant by that. The other one's no longer here. Which I think is a horrible terminology.
But you could understand why kind of it's throwing us off,
No, so much so that I have two other books over here, and I went on the line to get to understand this. I understand. That's why I'm spending time here. Yeah, because that is very important. Definitely. It's not that our perispirits die. Our perispirit is transformed. In order to transform into something new, there's something old have to give.
Has to
be destroyed, so to say.
And destroyed and perish.
Right, has to be degraded to be upgraded, or has to be degraded to be even more degraded. In the case of the spheroids or the ovoids.
In fact, if they had said the crystal vessel is also perishable and transformable, it would even be better too. More kind of, that I don't know if it helps, but I guess.
Yeah, and that's why I really dislike the word death over here as being used.
Yeah.
Now, the three types of transformation may happen. Again, one, every time that we reincarnate, we're gonna have to change that spell. We're gonna have to allow this perispirit here to be transformed into something else. If I'm going to reincarnate as a woman, this perispirit has to go transformation in order to form a female body. Are you going to call it death? No, I'd rather call it transformation. Here they call it death, which I think is inappropriate, in my opinion. Okay. Now, if I start to lose the proper shape of my physical body, because in nature, you have to think, if you don't use it, you lose it.
Got it. Yeah,
if you don't use it, you lose it. If you get both of your arms, put them in a cast for 60 days, when you take off that cast, your arm is going to be smaller. It's going to atrophiate. And you're going to require physical therapy to regain mobility, to regain strength, to restrain its proper shape. Right? Nature is, if you don't use it, you lose it.
Okay, sir.
And in spirit, in a state of a mono idea that has become nothing more than a machine that seeks revenge, it starts to lose the other parts of the perispirit that's not being used. It starts to atrophiate. As if I put my whole entire body on a cast, and all that I want to do is revenge, is to hurt the person who hurt the person who hurt me in the past. In this process, I don't think of family, I don't think of eating, I don't think of drinking, I don't think of nothing, absolutely nothing but seeking revenge. So all of those things that associate everything else but revenge starts to atrophiate. I start to lose it slowly. And in this process, the perispirit starts to lose its shape. And start to look first like an amoeba with amorphic, and then it's go condensing more and more into that mono idea that becomes to look like an egg shape, like an ovoid, one is spheroid. Now, keep in mind that the spirit does not change, the perispirit change. And keep in mind that this is a temporary state. Temporary maybe 1,000 years, or maybe a week, I don't know, right? But what is 1,000 years compared to eternity? Okay. Whatever time it takes for that spirit to start to expand its potential with something more than just seeking revenge, then it starts to regain its proper shape. We have seen, have heard spirits in our meeting who come and say, "You can't see me, I'm not human. There's nothing human about me," because no longer identify him or herself as human. It has lost that proper morphology that he associates as being human. Does it make sense now?
Yes, definitely.
Question.
Yes.
This morphology in terms of a paraspiritual transformation is what they're calling second death.
That's right.
So either the change of the perispirit from male to female and the change of the perispirit to ovoid is a second death.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
All three cases.
What's the third case?
Well, going to reincarnate in a much more evolved world in which there is no more digestive system.
Okay, thank you.
So one is pretty normal, average. One is sublime, is wonderful. You're going to get a much better body that is much less dense, that has much less requirement. And the other one is very bad, is when we become a mono idea, in which in this case, those hanging out in the spiritual world, they don't deal with this.
Kind of difficult, this, you know. Everything is difficult.
But do you understand it now?
Yeah, yes, definitely.
Okay, good.
Definitely not a death.
No,
No.
no, that's why I really dislike the term. And I even dislike perishable as well.
Oh, now that you explained it, well, I don't know. It's now that you explained it, it is a death. Yes.
Yes. Okay, our time is way up.
Oh,
I'm gonna make a final prayer. So let us elevate our hearts and minds. And give thanks to God our Father, to our Master Jesus Christ, to our spiritual benefactors, for all the help they received here today, and ask them to continue to assist, to help, to inspire us throughout the week. Beloved Master Jesus Christ, we ask for forgiveness for not being able to apply your teachings as often as we'd like to. We seek to be an instrument at your hands, to spread your teachings with our behavior everywhere that we go. We ask that you grant us your peace, your love, that you send your workers of goodness to be with us, to protect, to guide us. We ask for protection, guidance for our friends who are undergoing difficult trials, our loved ones. We ask for protection of the leaders of the bigger and smaller communities to choose to unite in goodness, in harmony. To choose to unite for better distribution of the wealth for the benefit of all of us, to eliminate poverty, to protect our beautiful planet in great need of help at this moment. Let us, beloved Master, be the ones who do our part to fulfill your commandments in the exercise of their charity to the best of our abilities. Maybe we will be back here next week in good health, hopefully a little bit better than what we are now. And we ask permission to close this meeting. So be it.